In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry has to open a golden egg underwater in order to hear a riddle from the mermaids on how to solve his next clue.
Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground. An hour long you'll have to look to recover what we took.
That is an example of a riddle poem, and this week our focus will be on comparisons and writing a riddle poem. Now, these riddle poems use different methods of figurative language, such as similes and metaphors, personification, hyperboles, alliterations, onomatopoeia, and such other things like imagery. We're going to be writing our own comparison or riddle poems this week as part of our task. So this week, to go through the suggested timeline, the first thing I want you to do on Monday, it's going to take about 30 minutes or so, is to watch the movie that I put on, this little video here. It's about 5 minutes long, and it'll go through some of those figurative language devices like metaphors, similes, and personification that you're going to need this week. This is really similar to what we did earlier in one of our Kid Blog writing challenges. But this time we're going to be using a poem and not a descriptive paragraph. Once you watch the video, I want you to go to the student paced Nearpod lesson. For this Nearpod lesson, it's right here. And you're going to click on the link, and that will open up to the login page that you're going to put your name in here, and then join the session. This will direct you through the lesson, so you can swipe through, and it's going to ask you questions as you go through. Okay, in today's lesson, you're going to be able to read that and learn as you go. Sometimes there's going to be movies that I'm going to ask you to watch, and as you go through, there will be questions as well. You can record your answers to your question either by typing it, or you can record an audio recording as well. As we go through this, you're going to see that there are different slides down the side sometimes. You can flip between the slides by clicking on them here. Okay, and continue with similes in songs as well. This will give you a whole bunch of different ideas of similes and metaphors and where they're used in modern day literature and in movies that you might have watched. As you continue through, you're going to see that we're filling in some blanks as well as we go through, and we'll be typing those in and continuing through this lesson. When you're done the lesson, it should take about 25 minutes or so. Then you can submit this card, and I'll be able to check your Nearpod report to see how you did and if you needed any help. So that's Mondays. It should take about 30 minutes or so, I would suggest. On Tuesday, my suggest is to read over the weekly task, the comparison poem instructions, and those are found right here in our comparison poem task. And so I have you going through this, what we're doing. There's a little clip from Lord of the Rings, or sorry, from The Hobbit. And then what are we doing this week? We're writing our own riddle poem. And this document takes you through the task instructions, and then using tips from Read, Write, Think, it's going to take you through the different processes. So what is your subject? Here's some tips for getting a subject, brainstorming, point of view, figurative language, writing a draft, and finally making it stylish and submitting it in time. So that's something you're going to want to read through and make sure you understand what the task is. Once you understand the task, then I'm going to ask you to choose your subject of your poem and complete the organizer for your poem. This might take anywhere from 30, maybe 40 minutes, but I'm thinking around 30 minutes. And all of that is found at the top of the writing challenge here. So when you click on comparison poem, it'll open up a copy just for you. And then you can fill in some of these areas. So what is your subject? Brainstorm everything you can about that. And then think like the object, point of view of the object. If you were a chair, what would that be like? If you were a pen, what would that be like? If you were a car, what would it be like to be a car? What would you see? What would you hear? What do you smell and feel? What do you do? What do you like? Things like that. And then we're going to incorporate that figurative language that we learned in our Nearpod lesson and through our YouTube video in similes and metaphors and personifications. And so you can write down different similes, metaphors, and personifications that you might want to use in your riddle based on the subject you chose. So that's on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to ask you to use your ideas in the organizer to construct a poem. And you're going to use all these organizers here to do your poem in this blank space here. Now, it doesn't have to be any longer than maybe 8 lines. Longer poems are going to be much more difficult. So try to stick to 8 lines maximum. Choose the best things that you brainstormed in all of your ideas and organizing here, in order to really paint a picture. And make sure you don't include anything to do specifically that will give away what your object is. So for example, if you chose a fish, don't mention things like gills or fins or anything like that, because it'll be too obvious. So you want to make it sort of subtle, the comparisons that you've made, but still meaningful. If you get everything done by Wednesday, you're essentially done for the week. Obviously, you can spread this over multiple days and more days if you need to, but if you do get your poem in by Wednesday evening, then I'll take some time Wednesday night to provide feedback and send it back to you so that you can check the feedback and make some improvements on your poem and submit it by Thursday. Obviously, if you don't do that on Wednesday, that's no problem. You can just take Thursday and push this a little bit longer. And a reminder that if we were in the real physical school, Friday would be a PD day. So I'm trying to honor that and only assign you 80% of the work this week. So instead of 2 hours, I assigned a little bit less than that. And really, you don't have to do this last 15 minutes. So I assigned about an hour and a half instead of 2 hours of English this week because of that PD day on Friday. Other stuff that's in the workspace that you can check out for sure. There is a feedback checklist that you can check to see just certain things that I'm looking for. And then these are some different poems that involve similes and metaphors that I encourage you to listen to just so you get a sense of what it would be like in poetry. I loved reading your poems last week on sensory imagery. They're amazing, and keep it up for sure. As we create our poetry anthology in a couple of weeks, you're going to have lots of great poems to draw from. So thanks everyone, and if you have any questions, as always, send me an email.